All right. Hello, y'all. Welcome to or welcome back to Colonial Outcasts on this crazy old Sunday where we're going to be reviving a fan favorite segment, Operational Breakdown. Yes, we're going to get all military analysis with this Houthi Israel drama that's been heating up since, Friday when a Houthi suicide drone struck Tel Aviv, killing an ex-IDF sniper. So today we are joined by myself, of course, Mark Wayne, co-host of Colonial Outcasts, and Jason, again, friend of the show, of Generational News. His links will be in the description, and he's coming out to talk to us about air defense, since he was a field grade air defense artillery officer in the United States Army back in the day. Your expertise is always appreciated. Thank you so much for coming on last minute to talk about this Houthi Israel drama.
Thank you. I'm always glad to be on this show. Support you guys.
Okay,
good to see you again, Jason.
Yeah, hells yeah. All right, well, I've got like 40 minutes. Let's just dive right in. Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk about Houthis striking Tel Aviv with a suicide drone. They modified it so it was like lighter. It could carry more fuel, so it didn't have the same explosive package that it normally has. It got through the Israeli radar and air defense systems and hit Tel Aviv. Then the Israelis responded by blowing up a fuel depot at a Houthi port of Hobadeh. Can someone check my pronunciation on that? That can't be right. And it caused a big fire. So, and then this morning, the Houthis returned fire with ballistic missiles, at least one, possibly more. There are conflicting reports. At the port city of Eilat, they were, of course, intercepted by the Iron Dome. So we're going to talk about this. But we're first going to talk about how air defense works, how the Houthis possibly could have gotten through all of their overlapping air defense systems to strike Tel Aviv. But before that, let's just look at the video of this drone just idling in, wandering into Tel Aviv. And this is not the first time they've had a problem with an enemy drone over their sensitive airspace. The port of Haifa last month, Hezbollah got a reconnaissance drone with ISR footage marking an entire target deck, strike package deck in the port of Haifa. It loitered in the airspace above the Israeli port city for like almost 10 minutes, I've heard, and we've seen, and returned safely back to Lebanon. That was hugely embarrassing. This strike hitting Tel Aviv has them rattled. The Israeli Defense Ministry is saying, oh, it was a chain of human error. We're going to look at that. But for right now, here is the one extant footage we have of the drone entering Israeli airspace and striking Tel Aviv.
Ты видишь, дрон летит. Крестюш, ты видишь, что это такое? Блядь! Пиздец, это с какой стороны?
Yeah, so dramatic stuff, I'd say. It caused a lot of visible damage, killed and wounded one person, wounded three, and it caused quite a ruckus. This was a shock to the citizens of Israel, to say the least. So how exactly do we think this happened? Because, of course, the much vaunted Iron Dome system isn't just the Iron Dome. There's other things involved that hit different types of incoming enemy munitions, like the David Sling and the Arrow 2, and they have C-Rams as well. So, Jason, is this kind of a big deal that this got through their ADA bubble?
Yeah, it's definitely a big deal. Of course, like you said, this is the third time they've had drones in there. The first two were just observing, all the sensitive sites. But yeah, it's a big deal because that was only one. Of course, they can send 1,000 if they wanted to. But they said they identified it and there was human error. I don't know if I believe that, honestly. One thing I always talk about, one of the weaknesses, there's two weaknesses I feel like in air defense. One is to be overwhelmed, which clearly that wasn't this, or drones can go under the radar. And as you see, it's low and slow. And so radars typically don't, they always kind of have a slope up. And so you can kind of slide underneath the radar. Now, I am shocked that it went that far and got undetected because, there also is, they have six air defense ships out there, for Israel, and then of course we have our own Aegis systems out there, and so I am shocked that it got that far with being undetected, if that's what really happened. But like I said, this is the third time that they've had drones come in and nothing happened. So it should be deeply concerning. And I know Israel's concerned, but they're not going to tell us they're concerned. And if something so far from Yemen can happen, Hezbollah is going to be even a bigger nightmare for them.
Right, and so they definitely are concerned. They're one of the articles that was actually released right after the attack was in the Jerusalem Post. It says Israel's defense establishment in shock by Houthi Tel Aviv drone attack. Now, on Friday morning, the defense establishment is in a state of shock. But the writing was on the wall. No one saw this coming from 1,000 miles away. That is despite the fact that Hezbollah has managed to successfully strike Israel dozens of times with drones without being detected. So the Houthis, an Iranian militia from Iraq, using drones have successfully hit parts of Eilat, including the naval base, from late 2023 to 2024 without being detected. Israel has essentially outsourced its defense responses regarding the Houthis to the United States. So, when you say it got through the Aegis defense system, well, we have ships off the coast in the Red Sea that have the Aegis defense system, which is supposed to be like the preeminent air defense protection system. It includes radar and intercept missiles and all of that. So it got through that, the United States stuff, and it got through Israel's stuff. And, according to the Jerusalem Post, Israel has been moving in slow motion when attempting to improve its capability of shooting down low-flying drones, which can outwit Israeli radar, anti-air batteries, and aircraft much better than ballistic rockets. So I think the one thing looking at Ukraine, it's this the kind of like the entire defense establishment is struggling to keep up with drones and what they mean for the future of warfare going forward. So I don't know if you had to when you were if you spent a lot of time worried about these suicide drones that Iran is producing, because I know you were in Iraq and Afghanistan as well. Was that something that you during your time in service, that drone warfare was an increasing concern, or is this something completely new that has been developing since after you got out?
This has been developing since I got out because I had been out for 7 years, and
Mm-hmm.
so when first, of course, we're the first ones to have the drones and UAV kind of systems, like Predator and all that. So
Mm-hmm.
with any new technology, of course, then we have to figure out. There's time that takes to evaluate it, and go through the tests like at White Sands Missile Range, and to determine it, because with air defense, it's really about altitude and speed, and then of course size is a factor. But where it's easy to identify if it's a plane or a missile, drones now, everybody can get a drone. And even though that one's bigger than the one you can buy it on Amazon, but they do also have ones the size of the ones we get on Amazon. And so it makes it harder to detect and determine, if it's, bad or good. And so, I mean, if Israel's smart, they wouldn't allow any type of drones, and they would assume that every drone is an enemy drone if it's coming towards them. But the fact that it came from the sea, tell me that like we should shoot it down. If we're wrong, then we just lost a drone, But so I find it crazy that they would just let it go, which makes me think that they just didn't see it in the first place. But yeah, any type of testing, it takes a long time. And, of course, this technology keeps advancing fast, so it takes a while to just figure the system out, and it's several months to several years of testing for anything. 'Cause, for example, like when Desert Storm, we had the Scud missiles. Originally, the PAC I was Patriot system, and our missiles were designed to hit airplanes, not missiles, but they used them against Scud missiles. But so there was a lot of failure with that, and then whenever they shot a Scud, it would create debris, and then the Patriot would say, "Oh, now there's 7 things coming at us," and they're like, "No, that's just debris." But there was at least 10 years of studying and testing till we could figure that part out, and so it could get better. So I was doing some of the testing in like 2007, 2008 for that from Desert Storm. So they don't have a lot of reaction time to figure things out, which is a big concern for them, and it takes a long time to figure those things out.
Yeah, and it seems like the drone warfare and these new types of rockets, these hypersonic missiles, are kind of developing at a rate faster than the pre-existing air defense systems, which take a lot of R&D time and a lot of refining of tactics, techniques, and procedure to like become effective. It seems like they can't cope. We're starting to see trends in that.
Yeah, air defense is great, but all this air defense was originally designed for not drones, and so yeah, with the technology coming fast and the fact that they can throw 1,000 of them at you, really low elevation, it's going to be a game of cat and mouse, just like kind of like with the IDs when we were like in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like you figure one way to fight it, and then they have a new way that they're going to do it. And so you constantly have to adapt, but it's hard to adapt such an expensive system.
Jason, can you go into more of the failures of the Patriot missile system of the past, historically, that's failures? Because I've read a lot about the vulnerabilities of the Patriot missile system, and thus, I guess, David Sling, which is a very similar system, right? And so when we're talking about a swarm of these types of attacks, these were a Samad 3 drone, the one that broke through into Tel Aviv. Can you go into those failures of the Patriot missile system and why the failures of the past could be very relevant to today if they were ever flooded with, a swarm of projectiles coming in there within their bubble?
Yeah, with like with any new technology, kind of like what I was saying with the Scud, um, technologies continues to advance, and so while Patriot is a great system, it's still an older system. I mean, it evolves, even though you don't see the outside evolve, inside the software and all stuff is evolves. But and it is similar to David Sling for Israel. They're actually replacing the Patriot with David Sling right now. They're in the process of doing that, but
Mm,
um,
yeah.
but no system's 100% right. We have well, Patriot's great, and David Sling's probably a little bit better. Iron Dome, I don't think is, but with that, yeah, the technology just keeps advancing faster and faster, and so there's always gonna be failure. Even with like the Iron Dome, it has a 90% success rate, but that's against really bad technology. It's going against homemade
Yeah.
rockets, in the
Yeah.
strip. That's going against Hezbollah uses a lot of like World War II, Vietnam era technology, so they're 90% successful against really crappy products. And once the
Right.
good stuff comes, of course, it's going to be a lot harder. And then you throw in the drone stuff. So, but yeah, as far as like every system's gonna have its failure, and Patriot, while it is successful, it does have some failures. We have shot down. It was a British aircraft. I think it was in Desert Storm. With the Scud missiles, of course, like that, we had some failures. So it doesn't get tested too much, because we're not Israel, right? So
Hmm.
it's really there as just protection. A lot of times it doesn't really get used, and when you don't get used, you really don't know how great it is, other than those onesie twosies that we test, like at White Sands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so basically, just for the audience, in case you guys are new to this whole thing, and this is a relevant form of like warfare and understanding what's going on right now, how air defense works. So I pulled up on the screen. I'll try to explain it the best I can for people listening. So there's like 5 steps that go into intercepting an enemy missile. And that's what we mean by air defense. You're defending your airspace against enemy attack through missiles, drones. So step one, an enemy rocket is fired. I think the radar system detects the rocket. I think through like heat signatures and certain like where it is, like in terms of altitude, how fast it's moving. Is that correct?
There's different systems. They're like Patriot's called phased array, so it's kind of bouncing
Mhm.
off the object. But there's different ones that have different things for that.
Okay,
How
so
they detect it.
the radar system then step two detects and tracks the rocket. Then three, a control system, which is generally AI, right? That's AI determined. The control system.
It's so the control system is actually it's for the most part the system does its own thing. There are humans in there making sure
Mhm.
that there are no mistakes made.
Okay, so then the radar sends the data to the control system, which estimates the impact point. So, for instance, the Iron Dome system will actually ignore incoming threats. It determines will land in uninhabited areas. So they won't waste an interception missile on a rocket on something that will impact and not hit anything. So then the control system sends it to the launcher. The launcher fires the intercept missile, and the missile explodes near the rocket, destroying the incoming rocket. So those are the 5 steps. Enemy rocket shoots, radar system detects, control system estimates where it will hit. The launcher shoots based on what the control system determines and explodes near the rocket, destroying it. And you said this works best for not fancy missiles at all, like the Al-Qassam unguided rockets, right? And I would just like to point out that those take about $1,000 to produce, whereas Iron Dome intercepts cost 100,000 to 150,000 per interception. So there's a big cost differential right there.
Yeah, definitely a big cost. And so that's another factor, of course, that goes in there. Also, with the Iron Dome shield, I'm going to point out, as you see the yellow dotted lines, with like that drone, the radar doesn't touch the ground unless you were like in the Utah salt beds where it's completely flat for miles. There's going to be a gap where you can go under that. Like you could drive under that shield. And so that's why I talk about maybe those drones, if they have enough low elevation, they can slide right under the dome, you know. And so that's what I think could have happened.
Right. And so that's something that, yeah, I mean, user error there is a potential for that as well. But when we're talking about these things, earlier this year, there was some user error from a drone coming from the Popular Resistance Fronts in Iraq, shooting into the airbase in Jordan, maybe Syria. Most likely it wasn't actually in Jordan, but we're going to put that to the side. And it struck a U.S. base, killed 3 soldiers, wounded a bunch more. And they said it was because they thought it was one of their drones. So it just seems like there's kind of this theme of not really knowing how to interpret like whose drones are where. And we've seen that reports coming out of Gaza that the IDF is like shooting down a lot of their drones because I think they're Hamas drones. There seems to be this massive problem with identify friend or foe, the IFF systems, when it comes to drones too. So this it's like being able to identify the drones, being able to detect them in the first place. It just seems like this is a big threat to Israeli security, more so than a lot of these inexpensive rockets.
Yeah, definitely. With the, so with those air defense systems, at least for the higher up ones, the better ones, like we'll just say Scud. The system's gonna say that's a Scud. But of course, it's because we got experience with that. But if there's a new drone out there, it may not recognize it because it hasn't seen it before. And anytime the air defense is set up, like say in Israel, there's a lot of typing that goes involved to basically set up for that area. And so it's based off the history of what it's seen before. So when you got new stuff popping in, the system may not recognize that and let it go through. Especially when you have a drone too. Like I said, it's easy to get confused when you have similar things. Drones don't quite stand out. I feel like a missile or an airplane on the radar system.
Right. And so we've seen that Hezbollah has been able to actually target and take out 1 to 3 Iron Dome platforms, which is kind of significant because the Iron Dome and the functionality of the Iron Dome is kind of like a theoretical deterrence. Now we know that if you flood the airspace, to just present too many targets for the control system to be able to intercept them all, because there's like a shortage of rockets, it's going to have to start making decisions and things are going to get let through. How long does it take to reload an Iron Dome battery? I know you talked about it like requiring a crane, and it's this whole drill that takes more than 5 minutes for sure.
Yeah, I can, since Patriot is similar, I think we had like 20 or 25 minutes where we had to reload. That was so they might be a little bit faster. I couldn't actually find any documents that show how much time, but it requires a crane or a forklift. You have to take that, of course, off first before you put a new one on. And then you typically don't have those missiles right next to the system, of course, because that's bad if it gets hit. So you usually have to go drive to that space, which is, probably within 1,000 meters, but so there's a little bit of time. So we're talking probably 15 minutes the fastest, in a perfect situation to reload. And in an Iron Dome battery system, one complete set, they're going to have at tops 80 missiles ready. So if you actually throw, 81 missiles in that concentrated bubble that Iron Dome has. That one's definitely going to get through. Of course, more will probably get through, but and that's the key is to really overwhelming the system. Israel has enough. They have enough of the air defense to cover their whole space, no problem, because it's not a big country, but there is that reloading factor, that human part, and so I think I've seen estimations of up to 4,000 things that Hezbollah can throw at them in a day, and there's no way they could keep up with that.
I was about to say, what about the depletion? Like if they were flooded by thousands of projectiles, whether it be drones, homemade rockets, or more advanced, guided missile systems, is it possible they could get depleted to an extent where it would take a day to resupply on the Israeli side?
I read somewhere they would take they estimate, I think it was 3 days before Israel would run out of everything. But of course, we don't really know all what they have. But
right.
But yeah, probably within a few days they would run out of everything they need. And then with the she showed that the air defense system. If you're attacking the air defense system, you don't need to hit the launchers. There's usually like 4 to 6 for an Iron Dome system. You just have to hit the where the people are, the control station, or the radar, and then those missiles don't work. So you really only, for an Iron Dome, there's I think they have 10 to 12 batteries. So if they can hit those 10 to 12 radars, then there are no missiles to fight with, at least for the Iron Dome. They have different levels, right? But there's usually like 3 or 4 levels of bubbles. And for drones, ballistic missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles. But if you knock out the Iron Dome, which is really what's a lot of that stuff's coming at them is meant for the Iron Dome to shoot, they could easily run out and be overwhelmed pretty quickly, I think. And that major who resigned, the Intel major recently, and he made a comment recently that he said Hezbollah was deep in. Oh, go ahead.
No, are you talking about Harrison Mann, who resigned from the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I forgot his name. Thanks. So he said one time or recently that Hezbollah is deep in the mountains as far as their missiles and rockets. They're deep embedded, and that they could survive a first offensive from Israel, and which would be very concerning for Israel, because if they can do that, then they can, of course, launch up to 4,000 right back at them. And so they're not going to have that advantage like they probably normally would have, but because Hezbollah is deep embedded and they're spread out, it seems like. And so they can survive. If they survive that first offensive, then it's going to get real ugly for Israel real quick.
Right, because Israel's a small country, doesn't have a lot of strategic depth. So what goes first? Like water desalination facilities, transmission facilities, power plants, ports get shut down. And that's why I've never thought, I know that Israel's an irrational actor, but I've never thought that this would actually escalate. And I still don't think it will actually escalate into a full-scale war. And we are starting to see it doesn't seem like Hezbollah wants that. It doesn't seem like the Houthis or Iran want that either. So we know that Israel struck a fuel depot in the port in Yemen. At least 19 people dead, many more wounded. Very stunning imagery of just mass fires. And I do think that this is all part of another de-escalation effort. So I'm going to play this clip from Fox real quick to get some context on Israel's reprisal to the drone attack on Friday. Here we go. Where is it? Okay. Sorry, guys. This is from Fox.
The Israeli military says it intercepted a missile fired from Yemen early Sunday. This hours after Israeli warplanes hit several Houthi targets in the Arabian Peninsula country.
Oh, sorry, this is Yemen shooting back after the port attack. My bad.
The Israeli airstrikes in response to a deadly Houthi drone strike on Tel Aviv, where the first time Israel is known to have responded to repeated Houthi attacks throughout its 9-month war against Hamas. The burst of violence between the distant enemies has threatened to open a new front as Israel battles a series of Iranian proxies across the region. Joining us live this morning for this breaking news alert, none other than national security expert with the University of New Haven, Ken Gray. Good morning to you, Ken. Always a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Oh my God, let's see what this guy has to say. I'm sure he's not pushing a political agenda at all.
Good morning, Janae. Glad to be with you again.
So, a lot to break down, but we do know that these strikes are further showing that the conflict with Yemen Houthi rebels, also Hezbollah, continues to ramp up.
Yeah. So to put this into perspective, the Houthis conducted a drone strike on Tel Aviv on the 19th. Their drone managed to evade Israeli air defenses and still was able to get all the way up to Tel Aviv, strike a building, killing one and injuring another 10. So in response to that, Israel conducted an Israel-only air attack on Yemen, the Yemen port of Hudaydah. This was an Israeli-only airstrike.
Reports say they use United States targeting data because we're the ones with the fleets and the monitoring VHF traffic and determining strike packages too. So I'd say that that's not necessarily true.
In which they managed to drop a lot of ordnance there in Yemen along that port. That port is a place where weapons come into Yemen, but it's also a place where a lot of other stuff comes into Yemen. So that is a major attack, and the fires from that have been raging since the airstrike on the 20th. Now, in response to the airstrike by Israel, by the way, the Israeli airstrike was called Operation Long Arm. And in response to that, the Houthis did fire a missile at Israel, and that missile was intercepted by an Israeli, the Arrow system. So we are.
And so the Arrow system is for bigger ordnance, the intercontinental, the ballistic missiles that the Iron Dome rockets are not meant for. So larger ordnance that fly higher up in the atmosphere. Am I correct?
You are correct. That is their highest atmosphere missile.
And way more
defense.
expensive, right?
Yeah, way more expensive.
Yeah. So what does it signal to you that the Houthis are shooting the big boys?
I think a lot of times when they do that, it's kind of like a test just to see the response, because with any time they shoot, they're going to get the intel. I mean, they already have intel, right? Because Iran's got satellites; they can take pictures. But I feel like some of the stuff is one just to kind of like, hey, we're going to do something, but we don't want to escalate. But also, it's to gather intel of how are they going to respond. We'll get through. Where are those air defense assets located? Are they working? Stuff like that. So all these things, like with the Hezbollah does too. They're just constantly getting intel of how things will respond, what they can get away with. And so I think it's just like a combination of let's do something, but let's also like see, let's test out their best air or their highest elevation air defense system.
Right. And personally, I'm going to make a prediction here that the Houthis, if Israel doesn't strike back again with another major attack, they'll probably just return to business as usual.
Yeah, I think they will too.
I'm not seeing anything that they're making a lot of press statements. They have a pretty good PR office that's like, if any Arab states help Israel, they will be targeted. And then they release press statements like, yes, we targeted the Israeli port with multiple missiles. And it seems like they only did it with one. Could have been multiple. I'm not on the ground. I don't have any sources in Eilat, so it's kind of hard to say. But yeah, a lot of this is just, posturing, which we see the United States and Iran do. We see this all the time. It doesn't look like an escalation because, again, nobody really wants one. I mean, the Houthis certainly don't want all of their sensitive sites blown up. Israel cannot afford to be swarmed with a bunch of different attacks. So I think that this is going to be like an Iranian consulate situation where Israel makes a major attack at the embassy in Damascus. Iran responds with a very limited strike that was able to penetrate their airspace and hit non-sensitive military sites, just like empty tarmacs and a warehouse that was empty. And then Israel responds with like a tiny drone attack in the city of Isfahan, and then it's done. So I see this blowing over as well.
Yeah, I think the only one who wants something bigger would probably Netanyahu, but really just to draw, all the coalition forces in there so he can, destroy another country and get a little bit more land, but and save his career, because no matter what, his career's done, and I think that's his only way he thinks he can save it is by to to bring all of us into this a bigger event.
Well, it's been his lifelong political fever dream to get the United States to attack Iran on behalf of Israel. But I don't think anyone's playing that game because it seems like if we look at articles that are coming out of the Jerusalem Post that say essentially that Israel's defense establishment is shook, well, they're a serious journalism outlet, and so when they write articles, we know that they have their own military, like they have military officials on deep background saying this to them, and the military is kind of speaking through the press to influence public opinion about how they should view the conflict. Like, the military is kind of nervous about this, so maybe don't be such warmongers. I mean, the United States military does this too. So, well, I mean, we have to assume when we read articles like this that the defense establishment doesn't want that either. And this is not the first time we've seen it. We've seen that, IDF officials have come out to Haaretz and even right-wing magazines like Mariv saying that, like, yeah, we're not prepared for an escalation in Lebanon right now. So all things point to this just blowing over. Yeah, and honestly, I just wanted to do a quick episode, like just breaking that down for people, because I've been like getting blown up all day. Like, what do you think the Houthis? What do you think is going to happen? My guess is nothing.
Yeah, I'd agree. The reality is no one really wants this because no one wins in these big wars, of course. It just costs a lot of money, a lot of damage, and just disrupts your economy. So, except for, of course, the military-industrial complex part of it. But so yeah, no one really wants it, and only Netanyahu's really, I think, the one who could really make this worse than it already is.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not really sure like what else we had to cover on this. I did want to talk about the protest on Wednesday, but if you guys have any final thoughts about, what this could look like, I think it's pretty much a closed book at this point, unless Israel decides to be really irrational, which, they are, but they haven't really been in this regard because they really haven't done anything crazy against Hezbollah. I don't think they'll do anything crazy against the Houthis.
Yeah, I don't think for one thing I always tell my followers, I don't think they're going to have a big war with Hezbollah, at least until they are done with Gaza. And with Gaza, I mean, they're going to claim victory, probably in a month or two, in my opinion, which really won't be a victory, of course. But they're so spread out right now, and they really need to be done with Gaza. They're providing some type of security forces before they can even attempt to do anything against Hezbollah. But Hezbollah is so close to them, like I said, and they're built in so much, it's going to be trouble for them. And it's going to be really hard for the air defense too, because they do need a little bit of space, and Hezbollah is right there on them. They're right on the border, and so. But yeah, that's kind of where I think this may head. If there is a blown out thing, it's not going to be until they're done with this. They've claimed victory over the Strip.
Yeah. So the buildup that they were talking about, and the green light to launch a ground invasion into Lebanon, I'm assuming that that's dead in the water right now, right? Because I haven't heard any updates on that.
It's left the narrative. I didn't think it was going to happen anytime soon, if at all. And first of all, they have a manpower shortage. Like a lot of reservists and volunteers came to Israel, did like one tour in Gaza or like one tour in the West Bank, then they kind of see what's happening. They're like, oh, no thanks, and they're coming back to the United States. There's a huge manpower shortage. I mean, they have been trying to get the Haredi, the ultra-Orthodox Jews, into the military service for a long time. That's not new, but it finally got pushed.
And that's not going to make a dent. And it's not going to make a dent even if they do,
Well, yeah, and also it seemed like they implemented that law just because they were pissed that everybody else was fighting and dying in Gaza and they weren't. And it takes a long time to get reservists, like people off the street trained up and ready to fight. They're not going to be ready to go into the meat grinder of southern Lebanon in a few months. Like they have to go through like basic training and all this other stuff. So that they're not going to be viable anytime soon either. So there's just so many problems with the idea of a ground invasion that it just doesn't seem viable at all.
Yeah, I guess the question is, would Hezbollah be keen to wanting to take advantage of this lag in manpower and effectiveness and potency of IDF and take advantage of it? And just because if Hezbollah wanted to, it could end a lot right now.
Well, yeah,
really do some major damage, but it does. I mean, I guess I'm just always curious what Hezbollah is thinking these days. What they really want.
Well, we have to remember that Hezbollah is a governmental entity with a
Yeah,
responsibility for southern Lebanon. Like they
yeah,
know that even if they open up, Israel's going to level Beirut. Benjamin Netanyahu said it explicitly. We will turn Beirut into Gaza. I mean, and they can't defeat Hezbollah, but they can level Beirut, and that's one of the deterrents for Hezbollah because they are responsible for governance and the protection of southern Lebanon.
yeah,
And that's like they may be fighting for Palestine, but that is their first priority. No
yeah,
ifs, ands, or buts. So
yeah.
that's one of the many reasons why they won't escalate. And the second reason is they don't need to. Israel's doing a great job screwing itself over in the long term politically. Like they don't
Well,
need to have a massive war where a bunch of people are going to die to achieve the same political goal that less violent conflict will achieve.
well, I guess here's a question for both of you. What would prompt Hezbollah to launch an aggressive large scale attack on Israel? What would be that catalyst?
I think
What,
Israel
what
has to be the first one to do a major offensive, or like in Beirut.
Absolutely.
If it's going to happen, Israel's going to do something really major, but
mhm.
it would not be smart of them to do that.
Yeah, and I don't think they will. I completely agree with Jason on that. And if they're not going to open up with Hezbollah, I don't see them opening up with Houthis. First of all, it's not. What are they going to do? All they're going to do is bomb it. They're not going to put boots on the ground. The Saudis have been bombing the Houthis relentlessly with American bombers, bombs, and targeting data since 2014. The Houthis are still there. Their capabilities have not been degraded in any like major sense. The United States Navy has been going through strike packages on Houthi sites. Still hasn't really degraded their capabilities demonstrably. Biden even said it 2 months ago when he was asked by the press, "Is like, are Houthi strikes, any strikes against the Houthis like degrade their capabilities?" Is like, nope. Are you still going to do them? Yep. So basically, we're basically just going to see a reestablishment of the status quo, and yeah, that's it. I think that's my main prediction. So and I think Jason's agree with me on that. It's just they're just not protected. Israel's not secure enough to do anything super risky, and we went into like their main deterrence on that. It's their air defense system, but like there's a lot of problems with that. It's only good at, as Jason mentioned, getting the cheap stuff. They can be overwhelmed easily, and yeah. So there's that. Now we're coming to the end, guys. Freaking
So
protest on
yeah,
Wednesday in DC. Just
yep.
wanted to let everybody know that's still going on. Benjamin Netanyahu is still coming to Washington to speak to Congress, and he's bringing hostage families. So if you're in the DC area, come on down. I think everyone's going to start gathering at like 9 a.m., but the main push is going to be at 11 a.m. Follow Veterans for Peace. They're one of the main organizers for this, and it should get rowdy.
Yeah, so be there, be square. Jason, what tell me about your experiences with the protest and counter protest here in California. You've been on the ground, you've been, eyes fly on the wall, and during these protests, you've seen a lot. Can you tell us more about those? I've been meaning to talk to you about them.
Yeah. So I was there for UCLA and USC. USC, real quick, was USC, the students were doing nothing. They're just on the grass chanting, whatever, and very peaceful. But they got surrounded by LAPD. It got a little aggressive, but a lot of arrests, unfortunately, but relatively tame compared to UCLA. And I was there for UCLA the whole week, where it started with they brought in first we had the encampment, and every night there would be a handful of pro-Israeli guys. They would show up and play their music and stuff like that, babies crying, just random stuff, just to keep them awake. And so they did that, and then there was also the college allowed them to have like a festival one day. It was a Sunday afternoon, and so they had a stage, music, all that stuff, and it honestly kind of felt like a Trump rally. Honestly, is what it felt like, and there were actually Trump flags and stuff like that there. And so that got a little bit more heated, and there was a large pro-Israeli group in LA, but then we moved to where the encampment was attacked, and I was there for most of it, other than like an hour of it. And what we there was about a 3 hour period there where the pro-Israeli guys showed up in masks, hoodies, mostly
Hmm.
young men. A lot of them for Beverly Hills High School, and they
Yep.
attacked. They attacked for 3 hours. There was news helicopters there. There was one police helicopter above. The firefighter showed up whenever someone got injured, an ambulance, but
Hmm.
there was no police activity. As soon as these guys showed up, the UCLA police security, they all ran away. They were outnumbered
Yeah.
pretty quickly. And so we have 3 hours of no activity. And then when LAPD showed up as I was leaving, they just basically had everybody leave. So no arrests were made. And then we follow up the next night. Pro-Palestinian people were told to show up and support, which we showed up, several hundred of them. And from that afternoon, the LAPD kind of created a barrier. And, I ended up getting in the encampment about 20 minutes before the first flashbang came in there. And I had left, right before that happened. But for the most part, the students tried to hold up the encampment. But as soon as the barrier was down, they didn't put up a fight, and, just link arms. That's about all they did. And,
Hmm.
and so, but but to this day that I know of, there's only been one arrest from the pro-Israeli group. The kid who's now joining the IDF, who graduated Beverly Hills High School. We've
Hmm.
identified at least 6 or 7 of them. They don't arrest him. The only reason he was arrested is because Representative Omar, the day of congressional hearing with UCLA, she asked, "Why has no one been arrested?" He got arrested. So
Hmm.
there's clearly a problem, at least in the Los Angeles area, where it seems like the pro-Israeli people get to do what they want, and
Yep.
then they arrest the pro-Palestinian people.
Did you see it? Did you see that kind of stuff like up close, where you saw some collaboration with law enforcement and the pro-Israeli protesters? Like, was there
Yeah,
like a coordination with aggression where you know what I mean?
I mean, I never saw them talking together, but everything you would see it'd be. It seems like whenever there's more pro-Palestinians, it's always peaceful, and then the police show up, and it becomes aggressive. Or when there's more pro-Israeli people, it becomes super aggressive. But then the police just stand back and watch. And you saw that with the
Right.
synagogue when they had the sale of land over there. I wasn't
You
there for
were
that.
you were in that one, right? You were
I
there?
I missed that one,
Okay.
but I got all the footage from everybody, and there's you can see footage where the LAPD had a line, and one guy getting beat up by a bunch of people, and he's like, "What are you guys? Why are you not helping me?" And then they pull him
Mhm.
away, and then they
I
arrest the
saw
guy who
that.
just got beat up. Yeah, so it's very obvious. There's definitely a lot of power in LA. We have Zionist billionaires that lived right up the hill, like Haim Saban, who brought over the Power Rangers to America. Biden was with him. Biden went to his house a couple months ago for a fundraiser. He's a former member of the IDF. He gives to friends at IDF. So does Lucian Grange, which is the CEO of UMG, the record label. So there's a lot of power in that community. So it's definitely it's a unique situation, I think, where you have a lot more power than you'd say in the Midwest, as far as like a pro-Zionist thing. So it
Mhm.
looks like they're just told to look away and let it happen, but
Yeah.
there's no proof of that. But it's, as of right now they're the mayor, of course, she wants to now provide security to. There's a pro-Israeli security groups, even though there really hasn't been a lot of hate towards that group. It's just been these protests, and everything's peaceful until the pro-Zionists show up and just start
Yeah.
hitting people and following people to cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you saw
And
you saw a lot of aggression from the pro-Israeli side against the Palestinian side, like
Oh
up
yeah,
close.
definitely. Yeah, I mean they
Yeah.
follow people. I record all that, and they know me now too. They point me out.
Uh-huh.
I have a couple of them let me know that they knew what gym I worked out at. So like they're always trying to threaten you one way or another.
Well, what can you like go through just like brief bullet points of the behavior, the patterns of behavior you notice from the Zionist side of things compared to that of the Palestinian side?
So Palestinian side, they're always told, and I hear them say it, basically like just stay chill, guys. They link arms, they don't respond.
Hmm.
Unless of course they're hit, then they're gonna respond. But they're very, very chill. Whenever the Zionists show up, um, like they do with the encampment, it's hitting people, it's ganging up on people. I mean, 90% of it is just intimidating people, right? Getting in their face. 90% of the time, nothing happens, but there's that 10% where they are actually assaulting people within reach of the LAPD, and nothing happens. And so typically is a lot of young men. Not that there's not women there too, but the majority is young men. and they just don't seem to. They know like there's no repercussions, and so they have a free for all basically.
I mean, we did see that on the at the stolen land protest in Queens this past week. My friend Jacob Berger, he's an actor, anti-Zionist Jewish guy, got hit, but punched in the face. The NYPD like arrested the guy and then like let him go. So yeah, there's nothing new. So the next action is going to be in DC, I think. We did an episode yesterday on the ICJ ruling, which was historic. The other big story this weekend is the Houthi Israeli strikes, counterstrikes, but I think that's going to blow over. And the next big news story next week, unless something absolutely crazy happens, is going to be the actions that go down on Wednesday in Washington, D.C., because I think it's going to get gnarly, because you have Speaker Mike Johnson saying, like, if there's any disruption to the prime minister speaking, there's going to be arrests, because he's a sacred cow and he can't be disturbed at all. So I think, yeah, I'm going to be live streaming that on Instagram, and then I'll be doing a whole segment on that on Mint Press News on Thursday, just kind of like a wrap up of what happened. And yeah, should be pretty gnarly and exciting, and it should be an adventure. So if you guys are in the DC metropolitan area on Wednesday, the shit's going to start going down at 11 a.m. Unfortunately, I'm out of time though, and I started the recording, so I'm gonna have to end it, guys. I'm so sorry.
All good. We covered pretty much what we came here for. So
yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Jason at Generational News. If you guys want to follow him and keep up with his daily news updates, we'll link.
Yeah, check him out. He's awesome. I love his breakdowns.
Thanks, guys.
We will link his social media in the bottom so you can follow along. And hope this was educational for y'all. I don't think World War III is going to happen just yet. So thank you so much for watching Colonial Outcast, and we will see you later this week. Cheers, y'all.
Peace.
Later.